I accidentally revealed my sister's baby's gender at her gender-neutral shower, after she made everyone sign NDAs and hired a detective to hunt down leaks. It started off as something simple. Just a family gathering, a celebration, something light and joyful, my sister's baby shower. But of course, with my sister, nothing is ever simple. She's always been theatrical, the kind of person who plans an event like it's a movie premiere. So when she got pregnant, it wasn't just a happy announcement, it was a full-blown marketing campaign. The invitations to the shower were custom printed on handmade recycled paper. Everyone got one delivered in a wax-sealed envelope with a detailed dress code, a link to a private Pinterest board, and a mandatory RSVP survey asking our opinions on abstract parenting philosophies we'd never heard of. At first, I found it all kind of hilarious. I mean, who needs a 12-page PDF for a baby shower? But it was my sister, and she was glowing and excited and, for once, not constantly comparing herself to the influencers she follows. She and her husband, Jake, had decided they wanted to raise their child without gendered expectations, and the shower would reflect that. The invitation read, "We celebrate possibility, not pink or blue." I thought it was cute, a little over the top maybe, but heartfelt. Then came the NDA. A legit non-disclosure agreement sent via DocuSign that we all had to sign before attending the shower. It outlined that no one was to discuss, reveal, or speculate on the baby's gender, especially not online. I laughed out loud when I first saw it. I thought it was a joke. But no, it was real. She said it was to protect her emotional space. She'd already seen too many Reddit threads about disappointed gender reveals. According to her, this wasn't about secrecy, it was about freedom. I rolled my eyes but signed it anyway. The shower was held at a fancy event venue that looked like something straight off a wedding blog. Every detail had been meticulously curated. Neutral tones, eucalyptus garlands, artisan hors d'oeuvres with labels like "Future Food Explorers Delights." A harpist played gentle melodies in the corner while kids ran around a bouncy castle decorated in beige and sage. Everyone was on their best behavior, smiling, clapping, making polite small talk like we were all part of a high society brunch. Then came the part where everything went to hell. It started during one of the little games she had planned, which of course weren't called games, because that sounded too childish or forced. They were mindful engagement stations. One involved decorating tiny baby onesies with affirmations like "you are brave" or "your soul matters more than your gender." Another station had a big canvas where guests could write down wishes for the baby, but only in gender-neutral language. My uncle accidentally wrote "he" or "she" in one of the wishes, and the coordinator quietly pulled him aside and handed him a fresh card to rephrase with intention. But the real chaos began at the "guess the date" station. It seemed harmless enough. Guests were encouraged to guess when the baby would be born, what zodiac sign it would have, and what its favorite bedtime story might be. I guess I wasn't thinking clearly, or maybe I just thought we'd all silently agreed this was more about the vibes than actual secrecy. But I glanced at my cousin and said, "Well, I'd say early July. Most boys in our family come early." The moment it left my mouth, I felt it. This eerie silence. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Someone dropped a glass. My sister slowly turned around from across the room, holding a tray of vegan mini quiches like she was starring in a horror movie and had just heard a window shatter behind her. Her eyes locked onto mine. "What did you just say?" she asked, her voice so calm it was actually terrifying. I blinked, confused, then realized what I'd done. I'd said "boy." I hadn't even realized it, but yeah, I knew the gender. She had let it slip to me weeks ago, during a totally different conversation when she was rambling about names and mentioned how hard it was to pick boy names that didn't reek of toxic masculinity. At the time, she had sworn me to secrecy, but I genuinely thought she'd moved on or forgotten. I thought maybe she'd told other people too by now. I didn't mean to say it out loud, but there it was. I dropped the word in a room where that word was essentially radioactive. The air shifted immediately. The harpist stopped playing mid-song. Guests looked around at each other like they were unsure whether to sit down, stand up, or just disappear. My sister stood frozen, still holding the tray, her lips slightly parted as if processing whether what she heard was real or just imagined. Her husband Jake walked over to her and whispered something, but she didn't even blink. She just kept staring at me, eyes wide with shock and something close to betrayal. I didn't mean anything by it, I mumbled, trying to backtrack. It just slipped out. I wasn't thinking. You signed the NDA, she said quietly, finally walking over to me. You signed it. I made this so clear. I looked around at everyone watching us like we were the main act now. You're seriously mad? It was an accident. It's not like I live-streamed it. Her face reddened. You don't get it. This wasn't just a party. This was a boundary. A very clear one. Jake put a hand on her shoulder and tried to calm her down, but she shook him off. You think this is funny? This is our child. You violated our trust. Now I was getting defensive. It was one word. A slip. I didn't leak anything. I'm not TMZ. She narrowed her eyes. You think you're being clever, but you're not. I had to vet people to come here. I hired a security firm to wipe people's phones at the door. Do you understand how serious I was? Wait. Security firm. Back up, I said, frowning. You're saying you wiped guests' phones? She folded her arms. Of course I did. No photos, no social media, no private recordings. We wanted to keep this sacred. At that point, I was half expecting drones to descend from the ceiling to escort me out. I glanced around the room and realized half the guests were staring, unsure whether to stay or slowly edge toward the door. The tension was suffocating. Then she said it, loud enough for the whole room to hear. You violated a legally binding contract. I could sue you. I laughed, thinking she had to be kidding. But she didn't laugh back. She meant it. I didn't know what to say at first. The whole moment felt surreal, like we weren't even family anymore, just two opposing parties in a courtroom drama being watched by an uncomfortable audience of mutual friends and confused relatives. I kept looking around the room for someone, anyone, to back me up. But most people just avoided eye contact. Even my own mom had conveniently disappeared behind the bar, nursing a flute of sparkling cider like it was champagne, and she was trying to forget the whole thing was happening. Sue me? Really? I finally said. You're going to take your own sister to court because I said one word. It's not about one word, she snapped, stepping closer. It's about you thinking you're above the rules I clearly set. I made it very clear how important this was to me. You think just because you're family, you're exempt. I held my hands up. I didn't post anything. I didn't leak anything. It's not even like I confirmed anything. I just slipped. I wasn't trying to ruin anything. But she wasn't having it. She turned to Jake. Get the contract. He actually walked away and came back a minute later with a small black folder. She opened it and started flipping through the pages like she was prepping for trial. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You had NDAs printed and filed? I asked. What are you, Marvel Studios? She shot me a glare and pulled out a paper with my signature on it. Here. Paragraph 5. Any verbal or written disclosure of the baby's gender, intentional or not, may constitute a breach of contract resulting in emotional damages. She looked back at me, practically triumphant. I even had a lawyer review it. I snorted. What lawyer signs off on emotional damages from a family gathering? She didn't answer. Instead, she turned to the guests and said, I think it's best we wrap up early. Thank you all for coming. I'll be in touch with each of you individually. People started collecting their coats, awkwardly muttering goodbyes. I stood there, stunned, wondering how what was supposed to be a light-hearted baby shower had turned into the prelude to a courtroom showdown. Jake gave me a look of pity but said nothing. And my sister? She didn't even say goodbye. She just turned her back and walked away. At that point, I still thought maybe she'd cool down. That it was just hormones or embarrassment. But I was wrong. The next day, I got an email from her attorney. The email was short, cold, and to the point. There were no pleasantries, no, hope you're doing well, yes, just a strict legal notice that my sister's lawyer had drafted. I couldn't believe it was happening, this felt like a nightmare I'd wake up from. But it wasn't a nightmare. It was real. The email read, "This is a formal notification regarding the breach of contract at the baby shower on, date. Our client, sister's name, has suffered emotional distress as a result of your inadvertent revelation of the baby's gender. Our client seeks compensation for the damages caused, totaling a sum of $10,000. Please respond within 5 business days to discuss resolution or further legal action will be pursued." I stared at the screen, my mouth hanging open. Emotional distress. Over me slipping up and saying, boy. This wasn't happening. I thought maybe this was some kind of prank or that my sister had lost her mind temporarily, but no. It was real. Her lawyer even attached a draft settlement agreement, which was just more of the same. She wanted $10,000 for the emotional pain I caused her. I sat there for a minute, reading and rereading the email, trying to figure out how to respond. The only thing I could think was, are you serious? But the thing was, I didn't know how far she was willing to go with this. I couldn't afford a legal battle over something so stupid, but I also couldn't just roll over and pay her off for saying one word by accident. I'm not a lawyer, but I knew this wasn't going to hold up in court. No judge would take her seriously, right? I didn't know what to do, so I called my mom. I thought maybe she could talk some sense into my sister, but when I explained what had happened, she was completely on my sister's side. "I think you should pay up, honey. It's better to avoid the drama." I couldn't believe it. "Mom, seriously? It's not even like I meant to do it. This whole thing is absurd. You don't get it. It's about principle. She's hurt, and you need to fix it. Just pay it and move on," she said. I felt like I was losing my mind. This wasn't about principle, it was about my sister turning a simple mistake into a money grab. Still, my mom's words stuck with me. Maybe she was right. I didn't want to get caught up in legal battles or have my name dragged through the mud, especially not over something so trivial. I didn't know what to do next. But I was going to have to decide soon. I spent the next day pacing around my apartment, staring at the email and thinking about how ridiculous everything had become. On one hand, I knew deep down my sister was being dramatic. This whole NDA, contract, and lawsuit thing seemed so over the top. But on the other hand, my mom's advice kept ringing in my ears. Pay up, fix it, and move on. I knew I wasn't in the best position to fight this, especially with my sister having a legal team on her side. But I also didn't want to let her get away with making me feel like I was the villain in this whole scenario. I didn't want to be the one who just rolled over and let her win, especially over something so petty. So, I decided to talk to a lawyer. I figured if I could get some legal advice, maybe I could figure out if there was any ground to stand on or if I really was going to have to fork over $10,000 just to get out of this mess. The lawyer I spoke to was actually pretty helpful, though I'm sure he was just as baffled as I was by the whole situation. He explained that technically, my sister might have a case if she could prove emotional distress. But then he laughed, saying, it's going to be hard to argue emotional distress over a gender reveal slip-up, even with an NDA in place. She's not going to get very far in court unless she can prove actual harm, which, let's be real, she can't. That made me feel a little better. But then he dropped a bombshell. But here's the thing, he said. Even if she doesn't win, the cost of fighting it could be more than the settlement. Legal fees, time, stress, it adds up. It might be cheaper in the long run just to settle, even if you think it's unfair. I groaned. It felt like I was being cornered into paying for something I didn't even do wrong. I didn't want to throw away $10,000, but I also didn't want to get sucked into a long, drawn-out battle. After hanging up, I sat there for a while, weighing my options. I didn't want to give in to my sister, but I also didn't want my life to be consumed by this nonsense. Eventually, I made a decision. I was going to write her back, but not just agree to pay. I was going to stand my ground, but try to find a way to resolve this without sinking into a pit of legal drama. I wasn't going to just hand over the money, but I wasn't going to drag this out either. So I typed up a response, trying to be as polite and firm as possible. The email read, "Dear, sister's name. I've received your lawyer's email and have consulted with my own attorney. I understand that you are upset, and I want to acknowledge that it was never my intention to hurt you. However, I believe the claim for emotional damages is unwarranted and excessive. I am open to discussing a resolution, but I do not agree with the amount you are requesting. Please let me know if you're willing to meet halfway to avoid further legal action." I felt nervous sending it, but I also felt like it was the best compromise I could offer without completely backing down. Now, all I could do was wait. I sent the email, heart pounding in my chest as I hit send. I had no idea how my sister would react, but I hoped this would be the moment she saw how ridiculous the whole thing was and would back off. Maybe she'd realize it wasn't worth the fight and we could put all of this behind us. The next day, I waited. The hours stretched on as I checked my email obsessively, expecting a response. But nothing came. I figured maybe she needed some time to process my message. I even convinced myself that she might be cooling off, that my calm, firm tone would get through to her. But by the evening, I still hadn't heard anything. My anxiety grew. Was she going to refuse the compromise? Was she going to escalate things further? I finally couldn't take it anymore. I picked up the phone and called her. It rang several times before she picked up. Her voice sounded flat, not the usual tone I'd expect from her. "What?" I took a deep breath. "Hey, it's me. I just wanted to follow up on the email I sent you." There was a long pause. I could tell she was trying to control her temper. "I saw it," she said. "I don't think you understand how serious this is. I get it, okay. But this is all a huge overreaction," I said. "I made a mistake. I'm sorry. But I don't think asking for $10,000 is fair, and I don't think this should end up in court." She sighed heavily. "You don't get it. It's not about the money. It's about respect. It's about me setting boundaries and you completely ignoring them." I could feel my frustration rising. "I didn't ignore your boundaries. It was an accident. And you've taken it way too far." She went silent for a moment, then muttered, "I just don't know if I can trust you anymore." Her voice cracked at the end, and I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. "I never meant to hurt you," I said quietly. "I'm still your sister. I didn't do this on purpose." She didn't respond at first, but then she sighed again, and I could hear her voice soften slightly. "I know. But you really messed up." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I'm sorry, but $10,000 is insane. If you're willing to talk, I'm happy to discuss a fair compromise. But please, let's not make this a bigger deal than it needs to be." There was a long pause. I was starting to think she wasn't going to say anything when she finally spoke again, this time quieter. "I'll talk to my lawyer. But I don't know if I can just let this go." I felt a little relief, but also a sinking feeling. Was she going to drag me through this? Or was this a sign she was willing to meet me halfway? "Okay. Just think about it," I said. "I'm not trying to make this worse." After a few more seconds of silence, she hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, wondering if the conversation had done anything to change her mind or if it was just another step in this endless back and forth. The next few days were agonizing. I didn't hear from her at all, and I couldn't tell if that meant she was calming down or if she was just waiting to drop the next bombshell. Then, I finally got the email I'd been dreading. The email came in the middle of the afternoon. I had been checking my inbox constantly, but when it finally popped up, my stomach twisted. It wasn't what I expected at all. It wasn't another lawyer threat or even a response to my last email. It was a simple message from my sister herself. The subject line read, "We need to talk." I clicked on it immediately, reading her message quickly. She said, "I've been thinking about everything, and I realize I've overreacted. I should have talked to you before getting lawyers involved. Let's meet in person and figure this out without making it uglier. I'm sorry for going overboard." I stared at the screen, not fully processing the words at first. Was this some kind of trick? Was she still going to hit me with more demands in person? But then I took a breath. The last line, "I'm sorry for going overboard," felt like a huge step in the right direction. I let out a long exhale. This wasn't the legal nightmare I thought I was facing. Maybe, just maybe, my sister was realizing the absurdity of everything, and this was a way to salvage our relationship without the drama and stress of dragging it through courts. I immediately called her, hoping to hear the sincerity in her voice. When she picked up, there was a brief pause before she spoke. "Hey," she said softly. "I meant what I wrote. I'm sorry. I let my emotions get the best of me. Let's just meet up and talk. I don't want things to go on like this." I was relieved, but cautious. "I'm glad you're saying that. I don't want things to be weird between us, either. But we do need to figure out a way forward. I don't want to feel like I'm being held hostage by this whole situation." She sighed, a sound that told me the tension was starting to ease. "Yeah. I've been thinking a lot, and it was over the top. I shouldn't have let it escalate like that. I was just so hurt by everything, and I didn't know how to handle it." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. "I understand that. But the whole lawsuit thing wasn't the way to handle it." We set a time to meet up at a local cafe. I was still nervous, unsure of what to expect. Would she back out? Was this a way to manipulate me into agreeing to something unreasonable? Or was this genuinely her trying to fix things? Either way, I knew I had to be cautious, but I also couldn't let this tear our relationship apart. I showed up to the cafe early, trying to calm my nerves. I ordered a coffee and sat in a corner booth, my mind running through every possible scenario of how this conversation could go. A few minutes later, my sister walked in. She looked different, no lawyer with her, no stern look. She just looked tired. And, honestly, I realized that I was tired too. Tired of the fighting, tired of the drama. She sat down across from me, and we both just stared at each other for a moment. Finally, she spoke. "I've been thinking about this a lot. I want to apologize. I know I acted out of line. I was just so mad at myself for even having to do the whole NDAs and detective thing. And then when you slipped up, it was like the last straw. But I should have handled it differently." I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. "I get that. I really do. I just didn't want to hurt you. It was a stupid accident. But it felt like everything was blowing up over one word." "I know," she replied softly. "And that's my fault. I'm really sorry." I took a deep breath. "Look, I don't think we can just pretend nothing happened. But I also don't think we need to go down the legal route. Can we agree to let it go and just move forward?" There was a long pause before she nodded. "Yeah. I think that's what we both need." It wasn't the cleanest resolution, but it was progress. We agreed to move on, and while things weren't perfect, at least we were starting to heal. The tension that had been hanging over us for days was finally starting to lift, and I was relieved to know that we were both willing to leave the drama behind. The whole situation had been so exhausting, but at least it was over, for now. The next few weeks after our conversation were surprisingly calm. I wasn't expecting things to go back to normal immediately, but we had a few more talks, and they felt like actual conversations rather than arguments. My sister seemed genuinely sorry, and I had done my best to listen and not let my frustration take over. We even managed to laugh about how ridiculous the whole NDA and detective thing had gotten. I started to feel like maybe we could put the incident behind us, and I hoped that our relationship would return to how it was before the gender reveal debacle. But I kept thinking about one thing, the fact that the moment I made the mistake, I had no idea how far it would spiral. That single, innocent slip-up led to lawyers, threats, and a deep rift between me and my sister. And for a while, I wasn't sure if we'd ever get back to a place of trust. Eventually, though, it seemed like things were settling. We even managed to laugh at ourselves during one of our conversations about how dramatic the entire situation had been. Remember when we thought we'd need to hire security guards? I joked one day. She chuckled, but it was the kind of laugh that made it clear we were starting to heal. But, of course, as life often goes, nothing is ever as easy as it seems. One morning, I woke up to a message from her. It was brief, with the subject line, "We need to talk." My heart sank as I opened it. I'm still thinking about everything. I don't know if I can just forget it, even though I'm trying to. I'm not sure if I can really forgive you, even though I want to. I need more time. I read it over and over, trying to understand if this was just a passing moment of doubt or if she was truly still holding on to something. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as I thought about it. Was everything we talked about not enough? Had she been pretending to forgive me just to avoid conflict? I picked up the phone, unsure of what I was going to say, but knowing I couldn't leave things like this. When she answered, her voice sounded uncertain. "Hey," she said. "I didn't mean to confuse you with the message. I don't know. I thought I was okay with everything, but I'm not sure I can just let it go yet." I felt my own anxiety rising. "What do you mean? We talked about this, right? I thought we were on the same page." "I want to be," she admitted. "I really do. But every time I think about it, I just feel like I can't fully get past it. Maybe I'm not ready to forgive yet. Maybe I need more time." I paused for a moment, trying to figure out how to respond. It was like a wave of doubt was crashing over me. I thought we had worked things out, but now it felt like we were back at square one. "I understand that," I said finally, though I was frustrated. "I'm not going to pressure you, but I really thought we were getting somewhere. If you need more time, I'll give it to you." She sighed. "I just don't want to carry this resentment forever. But I don't know how to let it go." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I get it. Let's take things slow. We don't have to figure everything out right now." It wasn't the resolution I had hoped for, but it was honest. We weren't fixed, but we were willing to keep working on it. I sent her a follow-up message later that day, reaffirming that I wasn't rushing her, and that whenever she was ready, I was open to continuing the conversation. It felt like the best I could do in that moment. But deep down, I knew that while this wasn't over yet, we were both willing to try. That, at least, was something. The months that followed were full of small steps forward. Our relationship didn't go back to how it was before the incident, but over time, the resentment faded, and we learned how to navigate the aftermath of the drama. We never did talk about it as much as I wanted to, but sometimes, that's how things heal. Quietly, without fanfare. And maybe that's okay. Maybe it's enough that we both tried. What do you think? Tell us in the comments. Like the video and hit the subscribe button for more Reddit stories.